Hello, welcome to Everyday Life and Finance with Robbie. I'm Robbie, and today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that's come up a lot lately, inheritances. So I'm going to talk to you about it from a different angle. Usually when people speak about inheritances, it's how do you invest it, how do you distribute your assets, and things of that sort. But I want to just look at it, just briefly, look at it from a different angle. So when you have an inheritance, it's when someone, you know, passes on title to their assets to someone else. Typically it's someone they care about or an organization that they care about or something like that. They want to make certain that the next generation or a certain organization is taken care of. But we're going to talk about inheritances for loved ones. We're going to talk about that. So what they're doing when they prepare their estate, they're making certain that certain people are taken care of. And those people will receive an inheritance, of property, assets. It could be bank accounts, whatever type of asset it may be. So they are making decisions on how they would like their assets to be distributed or used in the future. They're making preparations. But the key here is they get to make the decisions. The heirs or the people who will receive the benefit of the trust or the will, the assets named in the will, they don't get to make the decisions, and they really should not be pressuring, the party making the will. They should not be doing that, and I'm keeping it in general terms. I am an attorney, but I'm going to keep it in general terms. I don't want to go through explaining what every term, every estate term means. Okay, but if you are inheriting or someone's leaving you money, you don't get to make the decision as to what or how much or which assets. Just take it as it's a gift from a loved one, someone that cares, enough to include you in their future plans. So you don't have the opportunity to tell them how to use their assets, while they're still here. You can't tell them, oh, sell your house because later on it'll be difficult. You'll get more money because you know that later on you will inherit more. You don't get to do that. And that's unfair to the other person. It's really unfair, especially when if you're dealing with an elderly person. And it's one thing, it's a very difficult thing to even have to think about not being here and what happens when I'm no longer here. It's not an easy topic to discuss, but it's even worse when an elderly person is pressured by someone who expects to receive an inheritance, about how they should, what they should do with their assets. They are still here. They still get to make a decision as to how they want to live. And if they spend everything, if they sell their house and spend all the money, that's their prerogative. The person inheriting the property, they don't have a say in how that person handles things. Okay, so I'm looking at it from a different angle today. And I've seen many instances where children, try to force their parents to put homes in their name and things of that sort. In some instances, a good estate plan is necessary, and I talk about that in one of my other videos. But it's definitely necessary, and you should think about what you want to do. But to pressure someone to give you something that maybe they don't want to give it to you, maybe they want to give it to someone else, maybe they want to leave it to an organization, that is their decision and not yours to make while they are still here. And I've seen this with elderly clients and people who are not elderly, whereas they have children who feel a sense of entitlement. You're not entitled to someone's assets. If they choose to leave it to you, then they will. It's one thing, if they're making these plans, if they die intestate or without a will, then that's a different case, because then the state will decide how the deceased, the assets of the deceased will be distributed. So don't do that. Now, the flip side of things is when the person who is making an estate plan tries to manipulate people by saying, oh, if you don't do this, I'm not going to include you in my will. I'm not going to include you in my estate. Oh, I'm taking you off of my will. I'm disinheriting you. That's manipulation. No one wants to be manipulated. So that's definitely not a good thing to do either. So it works both ways. The receiving party should not, the person receiving an inheritance, they should not pressure someone. And the person who is, making their estate plan should not hold that over someone's head. If you don't do this, I'm not going to, leave anything to you, when I pass on. I'm going to disinherit you. I'm taking you out of my will. That's not appropriate. That's not the right thing to do. And I just felt the need to come on and record a video about this, because it is so common. Now, I'm not saying that if you are a child that's set to inherit, assets from your parents or something like that, and you see that someone's taking advantage or someone's misleading them, I'm not saying don't step in those cases. In those cases, you may want to seek a professional to talk about it, to figure out, is there some criminal behavior going on, or criminal activity going on, or is there something else going on? Is there an underlying condition that's causing them? Maybe they're throwing their money out of the window or something like that, and you want to prevent that. So I'm not telling you not to step in those cases, but I'm saying if the person is able-bodied and their mind, they have full mental capacity, then they should be able to make the decision as to what happens with their money. If you see something going on, and sometimes I've seen these cases on Dr. Phil, whereas the Dr. Phil show, people have been catfished and they spend their life savings, sending money to someone who, is not who they thought they were. And if you see something like that going on, maybe you need to intervene or try to intervene and get them to see, things, see what you see. However, again, it's still their money to do what they want to do, and ultimately they have the final decision. But if you see whereas someone is fraudulently, let's say, for example, I've seen cases where people have fraudulently had their parents sign over their home. The parents think they're signing something else, and they sign over their home to their children, and that's not what they intended to do. So if you see something like that going on, of course, you may want to report it and take some type of action, to prevent that. But, or if you have, you have an elderly parent and they marry someone who's 40 years younger than them or something like that, or you have a grandparent and they marry someone who's 40 years younger than them, and they're clearly taking advantage of them and mistreating them, and you see something going on, maybe you want to step in then. So I'm not saying there are always extraordinary circumstances where you may need to intervene. But as far as putting pressure on people to make them, leave you some of their assets, or vice versa, whereas you're holding it over someone's head and threatening to disinherit them, that's not appropriate, So don't do that. Either way, don't do that. Look at an inheritance as a blessing. Someone thought, so much of you that they decided to include you in their estate. So that's all for now. I just wanted to talk to you a bit about that, and thank you so much for joining me. And if you like this video, you like this channel, please like, share, subscribe, and come back for more content. Thank you.